All options are on the table for the United States. That's according to this ABC News report. The United States will not hesitate to send in the Navy SEALs or any other special forces to go into Gaza and rescue the 10 American hostages being held by Hamas. There could be more because you know that many Israelis have American citizenship. So if they have good intel of the exact location of these hostages, they will only need to inform Israel and invade Gaza and rescue them themselves. But there's still a problem. Fighting inside a tunnel is a difficult one. You can see how tight the tunnels are. There's no room to maneuver, and if you look at that video that the IDF released recently, it won't be easy breaching blast-proof doors like this one without collapsing the tunnels. So if they can't invade the tunnels, how are they going to rescue the hostages? Because this is why the Israeli forces are stuck in Gaza. Despite taking control of the Shifa hospital, they can't move forward because they can't fight in the tunnels. Does it mean that they are now at the mercy of Hamas, that Hamas will dictate how everything will go, how hostages will be released? No, not at all. There's still one way to get to the hostages and rescue them. Both Israel and the United States will need to explore that way in order to get to the hostages, because the negotiations are not going as planned. And even if they successfully negotiate and Hamas eventually releases 50 persons that are mostly women and children in exchange for a 5-day truce, and who knows the number of persons that Israel will need to release, you still can't predict what they will come up with in the next round of negotiations, because they are not talking about releasing all of them. If they were, they can give in to many demands to secure their release. But since they are talking about 50 persons, it will be difficult to determine what they will demand next, because there are still 150 or more hostages in their possession. Now let's see the only way they can do this, since they are sure that the hostages are being held under the Shifa hospital because of how many reinforced doors they've met already inside the complex. So since they are being held there, they need to identify all the shafts and seal off many. Maybe they will just need to leave only 1 or 2 open, so as to give them the option of surrendering or coming out on their own. Then what they will need to do next is to start digging. Yes, they will have to start digging everywhere in order to expose the tunnels. Granted that the tunnels are in some places deep as 20 meters, but they can still dig them up, expose all the tunnels. When they have exposed all of them, they can now determine how to break it from the top. Yes, after all, it is made of concrete. They will just break all the tops to expose them. That way it is easier to see if it is booby-trapped. It is easier to access many chambers, many hidden rooms and sections. This is the only way they can go about it. Since they are in control of the Shifa hospital, they can do as they want, get in more diggers, dig up everywhere. It will take time. It is better to go about it this way. Of course, all of them will not be held in the Shifa hospital. They will still need to identify other places, other locations where they are. Then they will repeat the same thing, and maybe at the end of the day they will be able to secure many hostages. Let's hear what the Crown Prince of Bahrain has to say about the whole thing, the whole negotiations that are going on. He not only criticized Hamas but Israel also. Let's take a listen.
This speech is going to be slightly different. This is not a positional speech with a regurgitated copy that keeps being repeated over and over again. Both in Islam and Judaism, the protection of innocent life is a duty and a moral responsibility. In the Quran, it says that the killing of an innocent, and an innocent is clearly defined as one who has not spread corruption in the land or committed murder, is akin to killing all of mankind. And in the Abrahamic faith, the saying is to save a life is to save all of mankind. How wonderful. Now, both sides in this conflict haven't lived up to that. And I think our condemnation must be to both. I condemn Hamas unequivocally. This is so everybody in the room can understand that I stand on the side of civilians and innocents and not on the side of political posturing. The attacks on October 7th were barbaric, were, how can I put it? They were horrific. They used They were indiscriminate. They killed women, children, elderly, did not matter. They hit civilian institutions and they hit military targets. And on top of that, it seems it's okay now to grab hostages and take them away and speak about it as if it's an act of war. That is something that we condemn. And we condemned it on October the 9th, I believe, or 8th. Now, Israel. I unequivocally condemn the air campaign that resulted in the death of over 11,000 people in Gaza, 4,700 of which are children. Now, both of these actions have led to the death of innocents. Both of these actions did not save the entirety of mankind, and in effect are the equivalent of killing all of mankind. Both are reprehensible, both must stop, and both are a thing that we must deal with the greatest care moving forward, because what we need to do is to break this cycle. And let me speak a little bit prescriptively about how I think this can be achieved. Two of the most important things we must do today are to get the hostages out. And in order to do that, we have read in open source that the state of Qatar is working alongside with its partners in the United States and in Israel and with Hamas to release hostages. In exchange, we read, this is not corroborated, for prisoners who are also held within the state of Israel. Now, this is to release women and children on both sides, non-combatants, innocents. And this, I believe, is one component of what will achieve a break in hostilities. You want to call it a ceasefire, you want to call it a pause, you can call it whatever you want.